Jesse, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. Just a lovely afternoon here in New York City.
So, are you full-time in New York City now?
No, but sort of. I split my time a lot between here and upstate at Catskill, where I work for Forland, but I'm primarily in the city, in Brooklyn. If anything, I'm up 2 days a week on average upstate, but really based in Brooklyn.
Nice. So, I remember, I think it was during COVID, you were shifting towards upstate at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's always been a calling upstate Hudson specific. Started with just friends starting to move up there, going and visiting them, doing some residencies upstate, and kind of just, liking the proximity, liking the culture of what was growing up there, and then slowly doing little curatorial things here and there. COVID, yeah, when COVID opened up is right about when I did start to do um Hudson House, which was a project I ran for a short while, and also the very first nod of Forland, which coincided with the opening of Forland that summer.
I remember that. That was awesome.
Yeah, so it was very, very fun.
That was great. And it seems like there's a really vibrant culture upstate, and increasingly so.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's been growing for a long time, but it is clear that COVID was the tipping point to kind of establish more hardcore local living and not back and forth people. And with that came money, and with that came, more places to eat and more places to go and to see, and more just places and people grow like convening. Um, it definitely, anyone who's been visiting for a while can see clearly that like in the last 4 years, it's established itself as solidly stuck there and growing.
I was surprised. I went to campus,
Yeah.
and some big blue chip galleries were there. As Werner was there last year.
Yeah.
Um,
You went this year as well as the last
I
two
did.
years, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I missed it this year. I haven't gone yet, but they typically, it sounds like they do one big show in the summer and then it kind of stays up through October or so. And yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily super part of it, but I know plenty of the people part of it. And yeah, a bunch of galleries from the city bought this building with my understanding to kind of use some of it for like their own resources, whether it be storage and viewing exhibition space, etc. But in the meanwhile, it is a very cool old school building that and I love art in non-conventional settings, which I believe are actually more conventional than a non-conventional evaporated white cube.
Let's talk about your background a bit. Did you grow up in the city here?
I grew up outside of the city in New Jersey, a town called Milburn, kind of closer to Newark. So I had the city at close proximity, going into the city for museums and shopping and stuff my whole childhood.
Where'd you go to undergrad?
RISD, I went there in 2000 to 2004.
And you went to Columbia for grad school, right?
I went to Columbia after 5 years or so. After out of school, I went back to for sculpture and MFA, and then reestablished myself back in the city again.
So in undergrad, were you making sculpture as well?
Yeah, I always was making sculpture or object related types of forms of art.
And you're still making art?
Sort of. I think I'm at a peaceful place right now, just knowing that I'm always going to be bouncing between projects. And one of those things is my studio practice or other people's studio practices, and so I do have a studio, which is more of a dumping grounds for material at Forland. Sometimes I make art there, but I'm mostly just collecting materials these days.
To make art in the future, perhaps, with those materials?
Yeah, yeah. I've been ever since I went to the Sharpalentis program 2 years ago, it kind of got my studio practice reinvigorated in like a new way. Like after taking a real break from my studio, kind of going to that being like, okay, well, I'm not gonna just pick up where I left off because I don't remember what I was doing. And so it took me like a while to just kind of figure out, okay, well, what am I doing right now? And a lot of it had to do with collecting materials, specifically plastic items on the streets, stoops, and stuff like that. Having always been object based and plastic based in the past was all resin based, so the chemical ingredients as a liquid. But in the end, I'm just like, well, there's actually so many great shapes already out there. to for free.
So you're establishing a kind of a palette, perhaps.
Definitely. And like that's actually the most fun part is like organizing them. So like I have, if you go to my studio, there's like the big bin of the large clear things, the big bin of the large of the clear frosted black elements, the small clear things, the small colorful, the brown ones. Like it's very fun to organize and catalog. I think that actually is a big part of my work too, is organizing and cataloging and language making.
I had a teacher in undergrad who would say how you organize things is really important. How you organize your space, your studio, just your life in general.
Organizing and reorganizing studios and offices is probably my favorite activity and the best way to waste time. Thinking that you're going to make it the most efficient space possible
Yeah.
over and
But
over again.
but you might discover something along the way doing that.
I mean, I always do. I love it. I love making spaces that I feel are efficient. And it makes sense. I'm always changing. What I'm working on is always changing. So the spaces need to change too.
So you've been able to basically manage your career as a gallerist, a dealer, art advisor with being an artist. I think that's a rare thing. It seems like most people choose one or the other.
Manage and balance are interesting words, maybe, for this first. Um, yeah, I think the yeah, it's unlikely for most situations, but I think for me, it's art first and artists and the community or the relationship between art and people is first. And so that just exists in so many different areas and arenas. And it is just kind of something I've kind of come to find more balance with. And I think that has a lot more to do with kind of my own personal, like kind of traveling through figuring out that balance of having in the past wanting to continue and establish studio practice while also running galleries, and then finding the gallery really was all you needed to invest yourself completely in it, and the studio goes away, and now more of like a roving model in every aspect. And so balance is based on projects, more of a project based than product based way of looking at it.
It's really refreshing. The first time I think we met actually was back in 2016. My friend Leah had a show, Leah Guadagnoli, at your space 247365 on, I think it was on Stanton, right?
Yeah, that was a great show.
And Lori said it's an awesome show and it was an awesome gallery. And I remember every show you had was just a knockout show. And there was a lot of excitement around what you were doing. And it was refreshing and it was new and it felt really like you had your finger on the pulse of what was happening in New York and in the art world.
Yeah, I mean, those days are still like so highly well remembered, and they people bring them up all the time. And yeah, I mean, in retrospect, a lot of those decisions, like the taste making or whatever, like they were accidental just by who the proximity and the people were of the time. And it's like it's actually quite hard to like remember what it was like at that point, but it is important to like remember that like things like Instagram wasn't even like a thing yet. Instagram had just been kind of coming out and it was still fun to use. And we didn't even have like a Instagram handle for 24/7 365. We just use our personal stuff. And so it really was more about wanting to be there and being there. And I think for us, me and McGregor, like we felt that responsibility as an honor to like help to give good experiences to anyone that wanted to come. And so it was a good run, 5 years through three different spaces.
You started in 2016?
I think we started 24/7 in 2014, actually, which so is if you remember, it was like the week after Hurricane Sandy in Brooklyn, alongside No More Games in prime time. And that was that smaller space in Brooklyn, and that's where it really started. And then over the course of the 5 years, we kind of then had another little spot on Eldridge, and then our final location on Stanton.
Okay.
I think we closed whenever Trump first got elected. We got closed after that. So it's that lovely period of time after Sandy, pre-Trump.
Yeah, really like a little pocket of peacefulness in a sense. What year did you get out of grad school?
2012 or something like that.
Pretty soon after that, you started the space.
Yeah, I think it was probably like about a half a year or more, or just about after that. Yeah.
Was there a moment where you're like, I want to start a gallery, I'm going to do this, or was it just natural?
I had always had like a largely collaborative way of working with art and artists and friends. And this though I'd never meant to open a gallery, I think I was getting into the idea of organizing shows. And it just kind of was a serendipitous, like, kind of chain reaction of a friend from Colombia was starting a group, like a group crit group, actually, like a Google group that just combined artists, musicians, architects, writers, etc., with just a Google group. And that if anyone wants to like have a people at the studio, this is when they're doing it, blah blah blah. And through that, I met McGregor, Harp, and he really wanted to start a gallery, and he specifically wanted to start a gallery in that area next to No More Games in Prime Time, later dubbed the Donut District. And we knew each other for maybe 3 months before we decided to do this project together. And I think I also recall like I had had a studio with Josh Klein actually, and he was highly encouraging of me to either start a gallery or to start curating my own shows. He too, along with his whole consortium of 47 canal adjacent people, are so much a part of that type of ingrained model of self-supporting of ecosystem. And I didn't really even take that advice directly, but I think it all encouraged me to kind of just do these shows in a project way. And I think I'm lucky in retrospect to the degree of trust that artists vetted in me. And a lot of it's just because I was an artist. So it was more like the conversations that occur in a studio are now growing outside of that casual studio visit, and now they're in an exhibition space under the BQE. And because it was low risk, low lift, low everything, there was a sense of non-competitiveness. And so without even realizing how the art market or anything really worked, I didn't realize that some of the friends I was asking to be in these shows were already represented or selling or showing well. And so it just kind of a cascading effect of a lot of different like entities all kind of like popping off at once kind of helped it grow.
Did Josh Klein come to your studio?
Yeah, he had curated me into some shows as well. He also, as you know, curates the shows.
Hmm.
And I think we had some affinities with each other's work. And I think he was there just as a regular casual studio visit. I forget if I was working towards something or what. But I do recall him like highly encouraging me to just like I think I was actually asking him for like professional advice. I was probably asking him for like how do you get represented? And he was just like just make your own shows. And so I did.
Excellent. Yeah, I assume you've like everybody else in the art world has read the his piece, New York Real Estate and the Ruin of American Art.
Yeah, I mean it's nothing new, but it is increasingly alarming. And right now, I'm actually actively looking for studio or office or exhibition space in the city and finding it near impossible to find anything that is worth it or even attainable. But I would also say like we're in New York City, we're not in New York for space, Like people don't move to New York City for space. They move here for each other and for all the things happening. And things happen here no matter what. And I think that I will say this for myself personally. I don't know if I don't want to reflect Josh's voice as well, but I'm getting older and I don't have the energy that I used to have to be going around to like younger spaces, younger places, meeting younger artists and that kind of energy that I used to have that energy and be part of it. But I know that it's out there. I'm not part of it or they haven't shown themselves yet. But like I said, like there's we're in New York for each other and the stuff we do, not for square footage.
Perhaps this is something that's always been crisis of space in New York City in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to further than just studios and galleries, like it is true that like I will find myself like not knowing where the hell to go. Like I want to, where do you go? Like what do people do? What do young people do? Like what does anyone do that doesn't cost a big fortune or a reservation to be there? Like there are no art bars, there are no art cafes. There are few and far places that can afford to even let people sit around and chat and talk anyway. It's like that's maybe the bigger conundrum that's like sad, but I think and that's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot actually is like active spaces for art and people that not are not necessarily galleries. I don't know what that is yet, but that's where I've been thinking.
Right. What's the alternative?
I don't know. You see things whether it's like a co-work space or like a cafe that does this and that. Like you see people trying different models, or you see gallerists maybe just turn to an advisor role, but still retaining some sort of a space for like little events, little activations, little talks and stuff like that. I don't know. You kind of see it like when people go into survival mode, like when there are established galleries that are then kind of pivoting into like really smaller, different shared elements. Like that becomes exciting, I guess, in a way, because it's combining a lots of audiences, lots of people's energy, and just. But I mean, money model, I have no idea. Like, as I'm sure everyone's chattering, like our market's terrible. It's been really bad for a long time, and but it's just representative of larger economic structures that's concentration of wealth in one area. Like, we'll come out of whatever Basel auction weeks, and people be like, "Oh, the art market's better than ever because of the amount of art sold," but then the distribution of how much art was sold is tiny. It's like one really expensive artwork versus thousands of affordable, sort of cheaper artworks,
Mhm.
artists to support.
Is this a reflection of just the larger culture?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I think that a lot of people's spending is first and foremost reflects on how their money is being affected by larger systems at play, whether it's stocks, wars, or whatever. There's just so many trade issues occurring, and the likelihood to have extra spending, whether it be for art or anything, or your second, third, fourth home, boat, yacht, etc. Like, there's just less spending because there's just so much uncertainty. Where am I going to buy my investment home that's not going to get bombed? Where am I going to, and on and on.
Is this money going to be worth something, and then perhaps the idea of art as an investment is declining, but maybe that's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, art doesn't have to be an investment either. Like, it doesn't have to be a long-term investment. Like, clearly, for those who like to live with art, it's an investment in yourself too, and your surrounding and your environment and how you live. Like, I like living with art. Um, and it doesn't have to be art that I'm going to sell later for a lot of money. And there's two different elements that go into providing a supporting art structure as it is right now, and it is the investment minded or the much larger brokerage of art deals that is an artwork going from studio to gallery to storage to auction. And then there's usually, or in most of my time, there's always been a larger, more involved system of our lovers that want to live with art. And though that there's an interest for investment, for the most part, is people who just really want to live with it. And it doesn't have to be expensive either to start.
You might have collectors come to you and say, I'm looking for something, I don't know what. And how would you advise perhaps a potential collector?
Um, it's funny, it never really happens. No one ever, and if ever someone actually just comes to me, they're like, I'm art curious to like, which is very far and rare. It's usually you try to start to explain a way to just start. How do you educate yourself? How do you start going to art shows? How do you find what you like? It usually just kind of trails off and they don't really want to get involved. So usually it's more real direct prescribed kind of like advising or s recently, which I can't get too far into just because it's boring and also it's all struck in with NDAs, but like the last year and a half I've been doing a lot of corporate consulting, which I've never done before. And I genuinely enjoy it because they're like, we're going to spend this much money on this many artworks for these exact locations. Here's a floor plan. Here's our company I like ideology. Here's the other stuff that's going in the space. What do you got? And then I'll go through like hundreds of artists' presentations, and then we round it down to however many fit. But I like it because I work with a company called Acrylicize actually, and they make bespoke artwork and bespoke offices for a lot of these companies. And I'm an add-on of buying curated art, usually from artists from the cities of these headquarters. And I like it because it's actually refreshing because the people who I'm talking with on these principal boards, they care to actually represent themselves and their employees first and foremost, and to let it be something they know that their whole environment's gonna care to live with. And so, like there are like interesting metaphysical, ideologically geared conversations to actually get to what they like. And that's a really fun thing to kind of get corporate people to shaken out of their like general state to kind of elaborate on.
So you would need to know the values of the corporation.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's like a prescription. Like, it's like we are opening in Miami, so let's make sure it's Miami artists first. We want to support the immediate envi local. And then maybe it either fits into kind of what their company idea vibe is, or they give you direct kind of like terminology to kind of work off of. And then it's storytelling. I mean, it's storytelling for me to kind of find the art that fits them, and then it's kind of a story that they're trying to put together as well outside of just their general regular going daily going-ons.
I'm glad you say that about storytelling because I've been thinking so much about just any culture is really rooted in storytelling.
I believe
And
that.
and art being a reflection, perhaps you could argue the purest reflection of the culture. What story is it telling? It doesn't have to be narrative at all. What does it say about the culture? What does it say about the person who's receiving it, who's making it?
I mean, I think that entire existence is made of stories to the degree of our origin and everything, no matter what like no matter what element of it is, it's all storytelling. It's what stories you want to follow and elaborate on or ignore or have to be kind of rallied into.
Would you have a number of artists' presentations that you have on hand and you might peruse that? Or do you have some artists in mind when you get a
Um,
proposal?
So I would say, well, in general, I am always looking for artists. I think the most fun and exciting way to be working as a curator, gallerist, consultant, whatever, with artists is usually young, newer artists who haven't shown yet. Or it's exciting to me because I like to find new talent, and usually it's exciting on the artist part because something's happening. So I personally am always looking for art. I'm always keeping lists or following people on Instagram or whatever. Um, but that doesn't always mean that I have any idea of what to do with them. Like, unless I'm putting together a show or a fair or something, if it works, then I tap into it. But I like to try to do studio visits just casually as much as possible. But with one thing that's been really interesting with, especially with a lot of these larger curatorial corporate jobs, I often am tasked with like, is maybe a city that I'm not super familiar with, and maybe they want artists just from Chicago, let's say. And like, though there is a really rich economy of artists that have gone to the art school or have galleries there, like it is an international sport. There's just I don't have an immediate hands on the eyes on the ground of like what's happening. And so what's been really interesting and that I've been done for the first time with this new gig I do kind of open solicitation, open submission model or open calls, and I'll do it as simple as on Instagram. I'll just put a really cryptic, very vague post. Recently, I just said seeking Chicago artists, photo, print, paper, paint, small, 2D, whatever. And this one in particular like went far. Like this got reposted and viewed so many times. Instagram sent me a message like this went 33,000 views and I'm getting submissions like daily, still like at least a half a dozen or more a day. This has been going on for a few months. And but it's amazing. Like one, it shows the state of the art world. Like everyone's like really looking for an opportunity. Um, but also shows people are like recommending each other or their friends or whatever too. So it's and I think I only can harbor that because of whatever trust that I've established and what I have done already. And so what's been fun is that so this is a way that I'm finding artists that are going to fit my client, but I'm also finding art that I genuinely like and I'm interested too. And whether they don't fit that client or not, I'm continuing those conversations with these artists because whether I want to personally do something in Chicago or find a something else elsewhere that they fit. So that's been a really fun way to kind of just like put it out there, but like artist, I'm looking, show me what you got. And it's fun. And I try to like get back to everybody because so much stuff is thrown into the void and some of it fits, some of it doesn't, some of it I will never want to look at it again. But I just want to be, show people that I saw, get back to them. And the reality is even if I have nothing for them, like now I know about them. And now maybe I can recommend them for someone else who's looking for something like that.
And I assume it expands just your lexicon of art knowledge in a sense.
Yeah, I think the most interesting sideline element is that I begin to see common trends or new styles emerging that I feel are cross-spanning everywhere. And that is something that's really more interesting. And so right now, I've been putting together like a list of artists who I'm feeling fi have affinities with each other and a slowly new emerging trend of painting that I'm trying to figure out how to talk about or pinpoint or label. And I'm working with another gallerist too, who's also kind of been noting this kind of trend, and we're working together to like put together a show concept, and then find a host site, which is a way I've not worked before of like actually putting a show together, then shopping it around to galleries. And the reason why I'm being vague right now is only because I also don't want to spoil it or the name of the other gallerist, and anything yet.
Could you talk a bit about the trend and what you're seeing right now?
Yeah. I don't know how else to describe it except for like graphic abstractionism or something. And what that looks like is it's still painterly. Uh, it's not screen related. It's not like Photoshop. It's not digital looking, but it looks like its reference point is very ubiquitous, kind of like lexiconography, iconographic, logo, label, graphic design, signage based, but it's scrubbed of its content. It's like the best kind of like example, like I said, like imagine like you're looking at a wall where like stickers have been put on it, but the ink on the sticker has been uh worn away, and but all you're left with is this shape, and the shape is very identifiably, clearly was a logo of something that had meaning, but it's been scrubbed. And that's kind of like a metaphor for like what I'm kind of seeing, maybe like graphic draftsmanship in this type of abstractionism. Um, and so right now I have a list kind of running of some like of the big example names. And then it's exciting to see kind of like younger, new emerging artists that I find like I'm like, oh my God, there's something that's being discussed in this form. And I can't really pinpoint why, but I do believe it's probably political, and it has something to do with like moving on. It has something to do with representing the past, representing establishment, but straying away from political alignment and trying to like seek something past it. I don't know why, but it'll probably be clearer when you see the art.
I was sort of not in disagreement with Josh Klein when he said there can't be any new movements because of the state of the real estate situation and so forth. I think there always will be trends. So I'm getting a sense that there is not necessarily in what you're seeing in terms of trends in painting. Would you say it's mixed all media, or is it?
For sure, mixed media. I think painting is obviously always an interesting place to look just because it's the most accessible art form for anyone to do. You don't need a studio to do it. If you're an emerging creative that is still art curious and you're naive to how everything works, like usually sketchbooks, acrylic paints and stuff like that is just where anyone kind of starts expressing themselves. And so it's easy to look at painting first because it's the most ubiquitous and always will be. But yes, I also do feel like I've been seeing a lot of like US de pauvre kind of art being made of like some of it's point like purposeful, like oh, I'm using Amazon boxes because there's some like oh yeah, great, cool. But some of it feels like it really is just this resourcefulness. And yeah, I mean, as cheap as like as simple set of acrylic paint can be, it's still not that cheap. And it is interesting to think that there's a lot more kind of like junk art, not junk art, but like just like there are like the way I was saying before, like I'm collecting so much plastic stuff and things off the street because it's there, and there is just stuff out there. There's more garbage to pick through than ever.
It reminds me of it's true, but if you really look deeply at these things that are just left on the street, they're nobody wants them, they're garbage, but they're if you think about them historically, anybody from any culture across history before the 20th century would have prized that as one of the most valuable things they could ever have, just
Yeah.
beautiful.
a thing.
iridescent, plastic, whatever it is.
Totally. I mean, that not only that, but like even an IKEA furniture would have been like, wow, a fully made chair for free.
Yeah, people just throw them out on the street and the stuff you see. I was walking down the street and I saw these like little kids plastic diamond from a
Yeah.
Barbie set or something. At first I was like, "Oh, what's that? Something shiny, cool." And then I was like, "Oh, it's just a plastic." And then I thought, "Wait a minute. Actually, it is cool. Look at it. It's beautiful."
I'm trying to think of something recently I've seen. Just like there is an embrace scrappiness occurring, and maybe not as yes in the artwork, like just kind of these resource salvage elements, but also like there's more and more apartment shows that I'm finding than ever before. I mean, not ever before, but a lot more of younger people just throwing a show in their apartment or just dedicating their living room to a gallery space now. And I love this type of scrappy resourcefulness. Like this is where artists fill the gap. They can't afford a studio, they can't afford a gallery. They afford where they can live to a degree, and they're using it as a double feature now to kind of bring the public in. And those spaces always conjure the most active conversation because it is so intimate. And no one treats their apartment gallery like a gallery behind a white desk. They can't talk. They treat it like, do you want some coffee? Let's talk. Who are you? Why did you come here? Cool. Who are you? Why are you doing this? So I like that kind of scrappiness. That's I think is really right.
It's more real in a sense.
Yeah, I mean it's there creating your own reason is really interesting and fun, rather than seeking opportunity in a way.
That's a way of seeing the current economic situation or the state of the art world as an opportunity instead of a problem.
Yeah, and there's room for it all. Like there is room for $1 million plus artworks in multi-million dollar, veering billion-dollar industry art galleries, and real art can be $100 or it can be $10 too that you bought off of a platform, an online platform. It's just what's story you want to listen to.
That's good. Back to story. Actually, that reminds me, we met more recently at Henry Gunderson and Florian Meisenberg curated a show
Right.
at that spot. I believe it's called The Kitchen, right?
It's called A365, but it's
Why did I
uh,
say The Kitchen?
but
I don't
it
know why I
does
said
have a
that.
beautiful kitchen space in it.
That felt really just like what you're describing. There was hundreds of pieces on the wall. It's like, yeah, whoever we know, let's just get it in the show. And it was like beautiful,
Yeah.
it's great stuff. Everybody was hanging out. It was just a fun party. There's everybody's drawing on the tablecloth.
Yeah, so that was another project that I'm not working with them anymore. So the folk who run Happier Grocer on the ground floor in Canal Street, they had that space as an event space. So they were using this as a flux. They were doing, cooking tutorials. They were bringing in chefs to do private dinners. They were getting like whatever fashion labs to do dinners. And then in the in-between time, they were trying to keep it as an active exhibition space to, public, private difficultly public but intimately fun private events. And so I had done a few shows with them at this space they were dubbing A365 or The Apartment. And there are all sorts of different types of shows. And that last one, I brought, I invited Henry and Florian to come in because they specifically had this idea surrounding these dinner parties, drawing dinner parties that they do. And so Henry Gunderson often would do these in his studio, invite a bunch of artists. He makes a bunch of spaghetti or lasagna. They just draw on the table and it's like a fun time. And so the idea of like relating that to this space was an easy one-to-one because it is an event space. It has a beautiful kitchen on one side and it's homey. It's not a stripped down gallery space. It's more inviting and comfortable. Um, and the show started with just, I don't know, 80 artists, which is a lot. 80 artists art on the wall and like a first dinner with those 80 artists. And it was probably one of the best parties I've ever thrown. It was so fun and meaningful, and people gave their time to it, and it's just something that like it's hard to like go out to openings, normally and have genuine conversation with people because you're bouncing between things or maybe you're only at one gallery or a few. But this was a committed evening for everyone, and it's the wine was flowing, of course, but it just it felt good in a communal and creative and genuinely like build a way of building something together. Henry and Florian then took it even further and they kept that show going and growing for months. They kept inviting artists, kept inviting activations, kept putting art on their wall until they essentially covered every square inch of that space with art. And I think they had a really fun time deinstalling and returning art.
I bet they did. So you started that show.
I started only by inviting Henry and Florian. Prior to that, I was doing smaller scale exhibition or just like of project of surrounded events activation.
At that space.
Yeah.
And so you invited them to be in the show or to curate the show.
I invited them to be the guest curators for that show on what they were doing. And but they from that point on they pretty much just kind of kept it running for the remainder of its time.
And so this went on for months where it was just kept accumulating,
Yeah.
becoming a bigger and bigger show.
Yeah, and they would have more dinner parties or activations and music and all sorts of writing, poetry, etc. They kept inviting as many types of entities and activations as possible, and they really kept it alive. I At that point, I kind of let them run it. It was like they're running on autopilot. I didn't go to all of them, but I went to a bunch of the activation, kept adding to it a little bit. But in the end, I don't work with A365 anymore. That's just a different direction. I think for me personally, like I'm not interested in something that's inherently not accessible, private. I just need a space that's easy for the public to get to. Um, with hours or whatever, like exclusivity just doesn't work for what I need to do.
When you say activation, another opening when they put more work in.
Yeah, usually they would surround the art growth around like an event. Like they would have a another activation, maybe like for example, Nathaniel DeLarge and Rain Trainer, they did this type of laser light show activation. So I invited this kind of ambient jam band, Turtle Lounge, to come and play during that. And then in addition to that, like that would be another reason why to grow more art on the walls. And so these events and activations would be like the kind of the milestones for reasons to kind of invite more artists in and on the walls.
Oh, cool. So I think I might have gone to the last. There was like no more wall space. Was when I met
Yeah,
you.
it was, I forget what it was that we bumped each other, some other activation. It was, it might have even been a birthday party.
Was it? Oh yeah, it was. I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those were private then.
The space itself is a private space that becomes publicly accessible for events, but couldn't really hold public hours. So it's events, publicly event, but more more exclusive.
In general, in your work, you'd like it to be more accessible to the public.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's a five-story walk up to like but also this, I we could have tried to make fuller gallery out. It's just there's a flux space, so many things are occurring across different reasons, and so it's not the kind of space you can be like, we have open hours then and then and then. It was really open to the public when we do things, which is also a fine model. Like, people come if it's more interesting and more special, people will come to the events rather than just shuffle through a gallery on the daily. But I think it's just too many cooks in the kitchen in the end.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, Leah, in fact, you mentioned that you had seen her
right,
to setting up for her dinner.
right. Yeah, yeah, I had helped connect her with them, the guys who run Happier to do one of their dinners. And so she does incredible dinners upstate and all around. And yeah, it just was a good fit.
Oh yeah, for people that don't know, Leah Guadagnoli runs the Fancy Feast
Fancy
Supper
feast.
Club,
Yes,
and she does amazing dinners upstate. I got the chance to go to one upstate this past spring, and it was mind blowing. It's amazing to see her sort of transition from being an artist that
yeah,
I thought was doing pretty well, and then really fully got into cooking and really transformed herself into a chef at the
totally.
highest level.
Totally. I remember visiting her at the church that she bought, that's her home and studio in Hillsdale, New York.
Yeah.
And I remember like visiting, and the front was her studio, still making art. And then we walked outside to her like massive garden, which was amazingly blooming with all of her ingredients. And as she was doing these dinners and just it was a natural transition. It just seemed like she just kind of pivoted and didn't ever turn back.
It also shows you it doesn't have to be conventional art with a capital A. She's still
Right.
an artist. She's still doing creative work. Just talking to you now, I see the way in which you put on shows and find artists and connect people in general is a very creative practice.
It's fun. I mean, honestly, if I could just keep meeting artists and just figure out how to make money just meeting artists, that would I would stop there. Like um the connecting, finding, seeking, searching, and collecting of artists is very fun and exploratory.
You're describing what the newest trends are, and you get to really see that happen in real time.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that that's more of like kind of like a really elusive, harder thing to pinpoint, and maybe that's just kind of like a forever search for me. Like honing in on something, like it is very satisfying to be able to help propel an artist into like stratospheric success beyond way after me. But to be able to be there early and to be like, oh, my eye is on. I wasn't crazy. Um, but and that's like endless. It's always gonna be fun to try to find and see if like, oh, I think this is really special for whatever reason. Um, but yeah. It's like anyway.
Well, what do you look for? Do you look for something you haven't seen before?
Um yes and no. I think it's like it's always a combination. Sometimes it's like something I've seen before, but it's done really well. And I feel like and maybe it's like, ooh, this will work. Maybe it's not like challenging me in a way that other experiences can, but I could be like, okay, this is solid. This person's reliable, blah, blah, blah. Like this can go off into it. Other times it is like unique and like I haven't really seen this and the person is excited and exciting and obsessed. And I think that's really important too. Like that the artist needs to really be excited about what they're doing. I think I often, as we all do, I meet a lot of artists that are excited about an opportunity for a show, or excited about the prospect of this, or excited about a sale or a fair or inclusion or that. And that's not always bad, but it's not faith for me enough to see that they really care what they're doing. I've also seen so many artists reach success and then run out of ideas or the market tanks and then they don't know what else how to deal with it and they're gone. And I think I want to find people who are excited too.
So that's the number one thing is excitement.
Yeah.
Have a live workspace in Sunset Park. You don't really find these
Yeah.
anymore, and I'm so lucky to have it. But we have a couple spaces that are just work only, and then we found somebody recently who really wanted the space. And we wanted to talk to her, so we did a little FaceTime with her and just to make sure that she was legit and we would be a good fit and so forth. And she's a shoo-in because her number one thing was that she was just so excited. She's like, "What a cool space. I love it. It's the best. Oh, it's perfect." And I'm like, "Okay, that's it. That's everything. It's just what you bring to it, your state of mind, your excitement, and your energy."
Totally. It's true. Yeah, I mean, especially, I mean, art it's still business in the end, and it's a business of relationships. And no matter what level of that relationship, whether it's a art show, curated thing, or sale affair, or whatever, like you both have to be in agreement or equally excited. One person can't do more than the other. Yes, there are roles that are established. You make the art, I show it, but we're both showing ourselves. Like I am represented by who I show, and I'm not. I think in my earlier days, I would have been more of a believer of like the artist is always right. Let's just fulfill their fantasy, but they're not always right. Um, and I think the most important thing that I believe is that no matter what the artist's intention is, the viewer's perception supersedes everything. And so you could have a great reason, concept, show, press release, whatever, but it doesn't matter if what the audience is seeing is what they're going to see out of it anyway. And I feel like I can have a good perspective of what art actually looks like, apart from what you intend it to do. But And that's kind of what I go on now. I'm like, when it comes to exhibitions, curatorial presentation, whatever, like I want to make sure that my idea of what an audience perception is going to at least be a good, interesting one, and it doesn't have to align with the artist's intent.
What might happen if it doesn't align? What would that look
If it
like?
doesn't,
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, it could be simple. Like, I don't even know how to, I can't conjure a memory, an example, but I'll just like create an example. Like, say I have this deep press release about some traumatic thing I went through and I wanted to like tally it through these like dots on these pages. And I have a big plaque that goes next to it to explain this process. And it's really intuitive and interesting and has history involved. And maybe there's even like a quote from a theorist. But in the end, it's a big dot painting and it's really pretty.
So the intention of the artist, the idea behind it is less relevant to how people are perceiving it in your mind.
I think that a really smart artist or a really great artist can exude their intent and an idea of how it's perceived. I think there are a lot of naiveties to believe that your art will convey what you intend it to, or there's a lot of falling onto the structures around an artwork, like an artist plaque on the wall, the artist the compendium print zine or whatever, like to accompany the explanation. That's not to say that some artwork also can be incredible based around those systems as well, but I'm not super excited by, like in layman's terms, like art you have to read to understand.
There's a couple of recent shows that I think are meant to be representational of the times and they supposedly have their finger on the pulse of the art world. That would be the Whitney Biennial and the New Museum Show. And what do you think about those shows and if that is the case or not?
In general or this year's
This
recent
year's.
one?
Yeah.
I was not impressed with the Winning Biennial this year by any means. I thought that a lot of the art was like quality was really oddly bad and not scrappy like I was talking before, like scrappy resourceful, but like just like ill conceived, ill produced, ill like not interesting. There was a lot of like wall plaque reading art. You kind of need to understand what was happening to get it. There were a few things that were like overly fabricatedly produced, like ultra spectacly, but this felt lacking of substance. Like for me, it felt like it was a really poorly searched kind of group of artists. Like it just felt like I know that there's just so much more interesting stuff out there, and it just starts to feel like the way these things are put together, that whatever curators that are being put in charge, it's also an incredible opportunity for them to pull in their communities too. So you'll see names that haven't been around a while all of a sudden pulled into Whitney Biennial just because this curator has a relationship with them and they want to give them their moment now, due time, due praise. And it felt you could see the structural politics behind it in a way that just felt not on the pulse. Um, New Museum. I personally loved this show. I don't know if it has anything to do with being on the pulse at all, but I will say for the expanding the gallery, New Museum used to be the worst museum space. And that space made the shows bad too. Like it essentially was just a gigantic elevator shaft with some space around it. And now it has the proper space it can do with like the mission it's always intended. So this first show, whatever it was called, really is in line with like kind of like the entire identity of what New Museum is, like new body, new technology, merging or whatever. I thought it was a really fun show. I loved how much art there was, and there was a lot. It was like 800 pieces of art or something. I love the different ways of forms of presentation that they came up with, like in a way to f how do you fill so much? How do you put art in a space in different levels of degrees of kind of interactivity? So I thought it was really smart how they use a lot of the kind of the corridor areas for just almost like art on shelves, art in salon. It almost felt like they were using art as footnotes to create the bigger thesis for the show for the bigger rooms, and maybe the bigger room, like the pink carpeted floor, was like kind of like that's I loved it, but it's a lot of that art is kind of supported by the past, and that was exciting to see how there was a lot of old art in there too, just to show the trajectory of these ideas, where it's supported in the past. And so for me, like I was talking about before, like I don't want to have to read a plaque to understand a show, but I love how they used halls and halls and halls of art as the footnote to exemplify the bigger thesis behind this show. I I thought it was a really fun show. And it is a fun show. It's like robots flailing around. It's cool.
Well, but I like that idea of the art explaining the art.
I thought it was really smart.
That's really good. But do you like work from the scope of art history? Do you go to the
I like
Met
it
ever,
all.
older stuff?
It's funny. I go through phases of like being highly involved and out there, and also just not. Like I will say I've been really bad with seeing shows. So if you're listening and I haven't shown up, it's not you. I just haven't been going to many shows recently. I'll go to openings for friends, especially, or like artists I really genuinely like to support. But the reality is like I'd prefer to look at the art or experience it without the opening happening around it. Sometimes I'll just do like power days. Well, it's like I'll do all of Chelsea. I'll do all of Tribeca, or I'll do all of Lurie's side, and that's really fun because it's just like it's like looking through an art book, like fast. I can digest art fast and just chat with people. Like that's what's different now for me. Like when I was younger, I could go see art. It was all new, but now when I go see art, I know everyone too. So it's also social day. So it's a little bit of a different experience. It's like going to see art is not like, oh, do I want to see art? Yeah, I do. But like, do I have the social capacity right now to like want to do chit chat all day? And like sometimes I really do.
There's going to be some schmoozing involved.
Yeah, and I like that. It's fun, but I need to be in the mood. Um, Larger. So yeah, there's some galleries I'm always liking to see, or I'm always curious like what's changing, and I usually will make it like I don't go to see one show. I'll be like I'll go and see multiple shows in that area just to see everything. But like this month, what I really want to see, something I genuinely want to see, is actually at the Lincoln Center Library. There is a show that Jack Ferver curated of Martha Graham's work, her sets, her the costumes and all the collaborations. And if you don't know, this space is really interesting space. It is a library. It's like the library of Lincoln Center, but they
Hmm.
do exhibitions on usually performance artists. But Martha Graham is someone that I've always been fascinated with, and all of the peers that she collaborated with as well are super fascinating. So there's like Noguchi set pieces and stuff like that. And so again, it's like, it's a fun environment to look at art because it's in and around the books and the ephemera and stuff. It's not a conventional gallery setting per se, but I think she is remarkable and a really interesting kind of collaborator. She's coming from like a school of really collaborative uh artists and medium from her time.
So this would have been like 70s, 80s.
I guess so. Yeah.
It seems like a very collaborative time just for artists in New York then.
Well, the art world was so much smaller
Yeah.
then. Like there were very few galleries and there was no idea that that was the way to be. It also like back to real estate, like it was so much cheaper to exist, not just rent, but like you didn't have to have an internet, a cell phone, and all these other subscriptions and bills and stuff we have. Like it was more collaborative because it was more societally communal. Cafes and bars actually really were meeting up points and where conversations could occur, and people's private time was actually undisturbed, whether it be in the studio or whatever. And yeah, I mean, isn't that sweet? Wouldn't that
Yeah,
be?
man. Yeah, I've talked to a number of artists that came up during that time, and it does seem like it was actually kind of a renaissance
Yeah, yeah, it
for
does
that.
feel that way.
Yeah, and but maybe people look back on this time and say, "Oh, that's those guys. They really had it going."
Oh, the age of Instagram art.
Yeah, yeah. The AI before the AI's really turned everything into mush, right?
Yeah,
What do you make of the recent gallery shakedown?
the galleries are always closing, sometimes secretly, sometimes without knowing. I mean, You could open up any art forum from like 10 or even 5 years ago, and you'll be like, who? What? Where? Where was that? Like, who's on the cover? That I've never heard of that. So things are always changing. It just depends on why you care and when you care. But yeah, like there has been a bigger wave of of galleries I really respected a lot that always felt to me, or in my perspective, felt like, oh, they're growing, trajectory seems great, and then they're done. And it's such a fragile economy. It's such a fragile business to begin with. And so for the smaller mid galleries that need to close, my only hope is that those people are still around. Whether those people get absorbed into the bigger galleries or they align forces, share spaces, or start their galleries together, like that is exciting to see happening. When it comes to like the big galleries, that's their business model. They're a corporation. They have CEOs and CFOs that go through the numbers and they expand and contract to meet their quarterlies for their ba investor base. And that's what it is. Like that is a large scale economy that is kind of uncomparable to what a smaller gallery is trying to do or is operating on. And so when they dropped 50 blue chip artists, what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know what those artists were doing for the last 10, 15, 20 years anyway. But yeah, I mean it is representational in a larger degree. When I was talking about earlier, like the money flow at that level is highly related to the politics at hand. Like what countries and what tariffs, taxes, fuel things to get money through, where people are investing their other money that's not on art, like how they're, you know, there's those are investment holdings. Um, and so it's not like that money is just going elsewhere. The money's being spent but on different things.
So for a smaller gallery, it seems like it's almost like running a restaurant or something. Like they're always like a couple of weeks away from closing.
I'd say so, yeah. It's definitely rough.
Man, you've seen so many great galleries go out recently.
Yeah, yeah.
Even the bigger ones that people were really hot on a couple of decades ago. A lot of those you don't know about, like Sonabend.
A lot of them are also like character, leader driven. And a lot of it's aging out too. Like some galleries close because it's just time to like retire or just be done with it. Like running a gallery, you need to get to a certain level of so you can even like have the right amount of staff to run it. Like to be able to walk away, like take a weekend or a vacation and like trust that it's still running, like is a lot to trust in others that you're paying. And to get to that level where you can like really afford the right compensation for the right talent and trust, like it takes a while to get there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's it is a bummer how many of these good, younger, emerging, and like good trajectoried medium galleries have had to close in the last few years, but it just kind of shows you like how fragile it really is um, in its current model.
It's really a living thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's all relationship based, like the relationships between the artists, the galleries, the curators, and whatever streams of money that are occurring. And like I've definitely seen the source of money changes a lot. I've seen the same types of people come and go. I've seen the same types of streams of economies that fund into the art world, and that stuff's always changing too. Like, I mean, if the tap's cut off and all of a sudden you're like, I remember I remember when like I was running 24/7, there was always this like consistent stream of like sneaker bros, I would just call them. And they're like investment minded, whatever guys that they would just buy a bunch of cheap art and it was exciting and fun for them. And then their economy collapsed and they lost their jobs and we lost that in-stream. Then they came back in the crypto bros, same kind of thing, more money, also t limited amount of time they're going to spend until they go away and they lose their jobs. And then I don't know what the next bro is, but
Once we figure
we need them
that,
all.
well, we got to figure that out. We'll be rich. So that's funny you mentioned the sneaker bros because I think about, I'm sure they loved Henry's show,
Yeah, totally. Also, but sometimes
sneakers.
yes, the sneakers show that we did with him. Yes, but also like Henry had so much acclaim even at that time too that like there's always a good core of collectors and collections that are interested in his work, and it's undeniably incredible and so well done. He's become an increasingly more and more talented, like master painter over the ages too. So those paintings, it's funny, like if you remember the details, like there's big sneakers, but also there's lots of weird little details in
I
it.
love those paintings.
The weird factor weirds out sneaker bro people because they like the sneakers, but when there's like weird stuff in it, that's too weird.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. So you don't necessarily want to make art that Sneaker Bros like.
So it wouldn't be my goal.
That's good. So you have a plan for a show coming up. Maybe we could talk a little bit about future plans, what
Sure.
you have going on.
Well, the bigger thing that I've been thinking a lot is again, like I'm always like tempted to want to get a space again, no matter how expensive that is or not. And I'm always tempted to want to like open a space that's not a gallery, but it's some sort of living room. It's a living space. We're there, we're working. Maybe there's coffee or drinks, and there's plants, and there's furniture, and there's music, and it's more of like a living way of working in and around and talking about art and showing it. And I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. I have a few potential things that maybe will emerge in the next year, space-wise. Um, but I'm also just trying to think about like, okay, well, all the different ways that I am able to offer opportunities to artists that do work, and all the other the kind of tangential material that's created through that search. Is there some sort of new way that I can kind of like just reemphasize what it is I do? Because what has like I was saying before, like what has been really fun and unexpected is these like larger commissioned works for artists, big mural gigs, project managing artist projects rather than selling their art as a commodity or as product, but being more project driven is kind of what I've always enjoyed. And working with the architects of a space and getting the artists in early on to like really work in that way. And so I don't know, like I think in general, whatever JAG projects is my like, kind of roving curatorial entity, like that's open. Like I have a few potential galleries that'll be hosting my curated shows in the next year between here and upstate. Um, and whether I open a new thing or not is kind of like just as I figure it out and determine it. But like I was saying before, this larger show that I'm curating with another gallerist, I think we both have it in our minds that we want to be kind of like survey level. And so the galleries that we want to approach are going to be bigger ones, physically bigger and probably meaning a much bigger kind of, following and entity behind them. But I don't know. That's fun to kind of put together and a reason to it. Like I said, I'd never really done it that way. I've always kind of usually have the space and then fill it. But this is the first time I've had the idea and need specific space for it.
How feasible or viable is it to have a gallery upstate?
Um, it's kind of like everything else. Like I would say because of online and Instagram and website and everything else and art fair circuits, like you can kind of be anywhere. Um, And, yes, maybe there's some cheaper rent you can get upstate, but not really if you want to be easy and accessible too, because if people are gonna come, they're gonna take the train or they're gonna drive or they're gonna be there, like it's still you still want a nice space to do it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, same thing up there. I've seen a lot of galleries close in the last year or so, and some of them were like older, established. Others were maybe new and emerging and seemingly projected well, but same thing. It's just the tap's been cut off for everybody. And, I think we're seeing it more, not only pace, we were talking about before, but also we're seeing art fairs scale back too. And I think that's really telling because this is where people just it was like always like the biggest risk thing that people were investing in, thinking they had to do. And it's if it's done smarter, more intentionally, it can work. But not if we're just like keep adding more and more and more of these big giant fairs on the same weekends in the same cities, just to expect everyone to go to the next city with the same fairs under a new name or whatever. Like it needs to scale back. There's just the oversaturation is a real thing in every way as well. Oversaturation of and just exhaustion of seeing the same stuff pounded to you. Like it just becomes not special when the same artists are in the same booths in different cities every month. Um,
I like what you said earlier about your being more project oriented now.
yeah, and I was kind of thinking about that recently. Where like earlier when I used to do like Nada Miami back in the Deauville days, and this is I feel like art fairs, whether it was at Basel or whatever, like there was always like more of like the big spectacle solo booths that you could see. Like, did you see whoever's booth at whatever fair? Like, you don't feel like you don't see that now. Like, you see group shows that's a collection of the gallery, or it's a really straightforward representation of one artist, and like you don't really see those big knockout moves that the artist felt that they had a big platform to do, and they were delivered, and it was exciting. And I just feel like I haven't really felt that way in fairs for a while. It feels far more product inventory driven, which I mean, it is, but yeah, something's missing.
Maybe that scaling back is a healthy thing. I'm just noticing the way that you seem to be operating with a relatively low overhead and you seem to have a good amount of freedom. It seems like that maybe is not necessarily the gallery model per se, but that seems to be like an avenue or a possible way to going forward.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of put to words, but it does. I'm also noticing other advisors or consultants starting their own kind of little micro space platforms too. And I think that's fun. Having a more collection of more intimate, engaging places to visit ultimately is positive, I think, for artists.
Rick Rubin, for example, like the way that he guides musical artists. I wonder if there's a way in which you could guide visual artists and be a consultant in that way.
So yeah, definitely. I feel like an agent. I feel like that's more of what I've been for artists too. Like I'm not a gallerist that is out there going to dinner parties at collectors' houses and like buddying up with collectors is just it's not my interest, but I am there on for the artist side and the guidance as you were talking about like I think that that's it. That has been a way that I've described this my new space or business, or whatever, is more of like arts agency, an agent to the artists rather than a represented gallery level. And it kind of makes more sense too, like because there are so many opportunities, offsite shows, art fairs, online things, whatever. You put that all together, and that's could be a really fun package of things to always be offering artists rather than one solo show every 3 years or something and some art fairs here. Like the expectations, um, I think that there's a lot more that I've done that's just kind of like that guidance route for artists. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's always served me well. A lot of the guidance they propel off into elsewhere, but as I kind of like figure out how to kind of create those alliances, relationships, I think there is a model there to some degree of like an agency representative or even just agent like a gallerist for hire, agent for hire, or like a fractional offerings for artists, consultation, not just for like curatorial, but consulting for artists too.
I think a lot of artists could really benefit from that because so many artists have a difficulty with editing, and there's always some disconnect on varying levels of how the artist sees the work, how everybody else sees the work.
That, yes, but also how artists understand how art world and market works too. Like it's confusing. There's no book about written how it really works, but like yeah, to be able to actually guide decision making and expectations for artists is something that I feel like I do as well or can do.
Do you have any advice for young artists or actually artists of any age?
I what the advice I've always given for that or like when I used to run it in the gallery, sometimes strangers would just walk in, they'd be like, "Hey, how do I get a show here?" And my advice to them and to anyone is really like just start going to shows. Just start going to openings and talk to people. The more you go to shows and openings and talk to people, the more first you will find your people, which is the most important thing. You're going to find the galleries you find affinity and alignment with, and you'll find the people connected to it or the people who also care. The more you connect yourself with like-minded people of similar interests and tastes, or then it'll all start to come a lot clearer. Right now, there are thousands of galleries. They all don't show the same thing. They don't sh show to the same people. They you don't want to show at every single one of them. You need to find where you want to be showing.
Also, it sounds like it's really about connections between people.
It is. It's definitely you need to go see places and meet people to understand who you want to be working with.
Develop a community.
Yeah.
Great advice. So, is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
Galleries should start giving away more beer and wine again. They feel like they stopped during COVID. It's been really annoying. Should definitely give away more wine and beer.
Apparently, there was a list somewhere that listed like all the galleries that had free beer and wine, and so people were blowing it up. I
There
guess
was
like
an Instagram page called Thirsty Gallerina. I don't know if they're still doing it. And they would honestly, that was a better listing than Seesaw. It was more comprehensive than Seesaw. It had more shows listed than Seesaw, and it was like I wouldn't not even for just booze. It's like, oh, this is listing more shows than the other public listings programs.
but it would show you, it would tell you which ones had beer.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Well, Jesse, thanks so much for joining today. It's been a real privilege.
Thanks so much. That was fun.
And I appreciate the insights too. It's really what you're doing is truly a creative thing. You're being an artist, and I don't think it's clearly not a coincidence that you're able to do what you're doing, showing wise and finding artists because you have that quality of seeking, finding the best things.
Yeah, yeah, it is fun. I mean, I try to keep positive too for this. Sometimes it's really dark and I don't want to do anything. I want to walk away. But but yeah, when I'm excited, it's really exciting and propels me.
Do you feel like it's dark because of the corporate ties and the weird,
Oh,
questionable?
yeah, I mean anything you can think like that or just I could get disgruntled really easily looking at an artist that maybe I did so much for and then they just go off and do it. Like it happens over and over and over again. Like there's so many things to get caught up and disgruntled on or like the art market's also like because it's so thin, there's ruthlessness too and like there's people lie, people cheat and steal and people whisper into naive artists' ears to just get what they want, just to veer them in directions, and it's not always good for everyone. And there's so much insidious, nasty elements of it all which is, I think, why I've allowed myself to kind of be more comfortably not trying to run a gallery, not trying to be an established anything really, and just being honest and that like I love art, I love artists, and I love places where art happens to people. And I could figure out how to do that without running a really expensive gallery.
I think that's very smart. Do you feel like there's also problems with corporations that are trying to get you to show a certain thing or
Oh, you talk about with my corporate consulting gig
yeah,
or just
is that
I mean, if anything, like the reality is like, okay, so that level, like the corporate art consulting, like when I've realized what I actually am for them, like I am their employee retention. I help make sure that their employees want to work at their office because they could jump to like Google, Amazon, whatever, Spotify. Like they need the same talents. They need to have the full buffet with kombucha and cold brew on tap and cool art on the walls. And I am kombucha on tap for them. So do I want to like get deep into understanding like what's the morality of selling art to Amazon? I don't know. Like in the art world, everyone's happily selling to arms dealers directly. So, it's a much bigger thing to try to like encapsulate. But yeah, to the degree of where my art's going in that level, it's going for people to enjoy, to help like their day to day be an exciting, interesting space to add culture into their workforce.
glad you mentioned that because I did want to ask how you view the function of art in the culture.
In general,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, it's like endlessly hidden in everything. Like you can't like art is taste decision making happens to every level of us, whether you're like care about going to see an art show or a museum or if you're a tourist on vacation in Rome and want to see what you've learned is supposed to be pinnacle culture, or you're driving your car and you're deciding what taste level you want to listen to now, or you're deciding how much salt or not salt on your food, like creative decision making occurs at every level of our lives. And we can call it art, music, this, that, or whatever. But when you start to imagine life without creatives behind it, it starts to look really, really sad. Like, I think that's really interesting. A really easy place to point is like when Trump wants to throw a concert and then there's no music left to play except for Vanilla Ice. It's just, this is why we need artists. Like,
It's good. It's good. Yeah, because you're actually seeing what it would be like if there weren't any artists. Like, it's really
yeah.
sad, extremely sad. But so it's deeper and it's more important than I think most people, including artists and people that are in the art world, realize.
I think creative ex um what's the word? Just ways expression. The way that people express themselves, whether they intend to or not, it's creative. And how you dress for your meeting or whatever, like there is just kind of these types of underlying embellishments on the regular. Everything is abstract to begin with, really. Like even our correct grammar right now emerged from sounds. And I'm pretty sure that like the first vocalization between people was musical
Yep.
and not just grunts. It was embellished sounds
Bird
that,
song.
yeah, I mean, it's territory, it's acknowledgement, it's expression to each other, and there's something intuitive to the way different things sound, and that's like the root of creativity. I mean, I do think that I think a lot of my real core beliefs of what art is, I find it's more Darwinian than anything. It's kind of part of communication, part of reproduction, part of territorialization, part of like the core elemental way that we survive and procreate and move through time.
So it's embedded in our DNA.
I think so.
I think you're right. That's a great way to put it. And I think by doing things that make it more accessible, you're doing a lot of good in the world.
Or encouraging it at least, or yeah, allowing it to be something.
It's really important the work you're doing, and you're making these sneaker bros and crypto bros. It's pretty easy to make fun of them, but at the same time, you're injecting this kind of cultural influence into their lives where there might not be that same influence.
Yeah, I mean, it goes as far as the biggest fascist propaganda making as well. It's like if it could work at that level, it could work at any level.
On a deeper level, art is something that is you can't quantify, you can't really make a qualitative judgment of what it is and what it's doing. But I think just the nature of the nuance of it makes a person think.
I think so. Yeah, it does.
I think that's a good place to stop.
Okay. Yeah.
Really, thank you again for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much.